And I guess we can plow into the titular story of the day, the topic du jour. Jimmy Dore featured in a clip that was cut up by Post Left Watch. And before I hear any bitching about the source here, Post Left Watch has come after the Vanguard. Okay, they don't think positively of us. I don't think positively of Post Left Watch. It doesn't change a damn thing about this clip. You can watch it with your own eyes. We're gonna play it and react to it, but it created a catalyst for a larger conversation. And also, I have to give it up to Gavin because about a year ago was when you put your foot down and you said, "All right, dude, I give it one year. I give it one year before Jimmy Dore starts supporting Donald Trump. I give it 1 year." And I think that this finally starts to cross the threshold to where it's like, yeah, you're basically signaling to your audience that you prefer. I mean, he does. He's literally arguing that he prefers Donald Trump because, Jimmy would say that he would prefer the person that's the lesser fascist in his view. Of course, he has no argument to present for any of this. We'll get into that. But yeah. Congratulations, Gavin. You called that one. Hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, he's been kind of dropping hints for a while now about the direction that he's going. And yeah, this is the latest example of that. This clip got a lot of traction online, racked up a surprising amount of views, a lot of people disputing what Jimmy Dore is claiming here. So let's take a look. And then Zach and I'll give you our reaction and then get into some other people's reaction, including Sam Seder, who kind of takes up Jimmy Dore and an offer that Jimmy makes in this clip. So yeah, let's take a look.
Well, Joe Biden is a bigger fascist than Donald Trump, and I'll debate anybody on that. That's just a fact. And so when people say that Joe Biden is some kind of an antidote to Donald Trump, Joe Biden is worse. He's a worse president than Donald Trump. And again, by any metric, he is worse.
Yeah, one thing I will tell people is that just because you can dislike Donald Trump, but just because you dislike him doesn't mean he colluded with Russia.
That's right.
It's just like
right. Chief, if they can do that to a president of the United
States. Yeah, I don't really know what the Russia thing has to do with anything. And yeah, just imagine, this is so embarrassing. Imagine having Jimmy Dore on your fucking show and then just kind of laughing and smiling along and providing no pushback to this obviously insane statement that he's just made. It's truly, truly embarrassing in my opinion.
Oh, dude. I mean, we've known that Sabby was absolutely unwilling to push back like an ounce on Jimmy Dore. She never brought up her interview with Nick Brana, up to Jimmy Dore. She never talked about why he continued to promote the movement for a People's Party after that was over. And this is from someone whose job is, what they describe themselves as, what she describes herself as, independently, I would assume, of the Revolutionary Blackout Network as well on the Sabby Sab show, is like somebody who keeps tabs on lefty YouTubers, right? But she's not keeping any tabs on Jimmy Dore. She's not even willing to push back on an asinine fucking claim that this guy is making to her face, right? I mean, it's pretty nuts. And I know how capable Sabby is. She's actually really fucking good at pushing back on people, as I will point to again, the Nick Brana interview where she got him in tears, bro. Like she got him, she exposed him, and then just did absolutely nothing with that. Did absolutely nothing because I think she did a calculation and she was like, it's going to be way too hard to sustain the show at the level that it's at if I burn the bridge with every single Jimmy Dore simp in my audience. Okay. And that's where you get in the situation where you have to laugh off and obfuscate and go off in some random tangential. So it's like, okay, she's taking the one shred of an argument that Jimmy has, the one case where you could be like, well, they got this wrong about Donald Trump. It has absolutely nothing to do with how he governed at all, which Jimmy just claimed was better in everything by any metric than, Joe Biden, which is just definitely not true. Let's talk about taxes for the rich. Like, let's just fucking end the argument there. Ridiculous. Let's talk about the lockdowns, Jimmy. Who was president when the country locked down? Who was president, Jimmy? Oh, by any metric, you're fucking idiot and so insincere. And the fact that she just won't even mildly push back at all. Crazy.
United States, they'll do that to anybody. They did that in lieu of killing him like they did to Kennedy. They couldn't discredit Kennedy like that, so they just killed him. Same thing with RFK. And so, but they could discredit Donald Trump because he had a comb over and he's been a clown in our society for 30 years or 40. And so it was easier to do that to him than someone else. And Donald Trump didn't have any allies inside the Republican Party because he didn't come up through the Republican Party.
Right.
And nobody owed him favors. And so that's why the Republicans establishment and the donor class hates Donald Trump. That's the difference between him and Joe Biden. The biggest difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden is the donor class hates Donald Trump and they love Joe Biden.
Oh my God. All right. There's so much we got to talk about here. So many just fucking idiotic, moronic lies just came out of Jimmy's mouth that it's almost overwhelming and almost impossible to even respond to them all. But to say that the donor class hates Donald Trump, all right, it's fair to acknowledge that the donor class would prefer a more easily manageable Republican, no doubt about it. I think that if the donor class just had their pick, then they certainly would prefer someone like Ron DeSantis or Mike Pence over Donald Trump, just because Donald Trump is kind of embarrassing, he's vulgar, all that stuff. He brings a lot of drama into the picture that other more normie Republicans don't. So that's fair to acknowledge. No one would disagree with that. But to say that the donor class hates Donald Trump, all right, calm down. Let's not go that far. What was Donald Trump's sole legislative accomplishment during his 4 years in the White House? It was a massive tax cut for the 1%. The donor class loves Donald Trump. They might be occasionally embarrassed by Donald Trump. They might not like having to defend the fact that they donate to someone who tried to end American democracy and inspired the January 6th riot. But when it comes down to the substance, they fucking love Donald Trump. And it's just completely ridiculous to pretend that he's somehow the enemy of the establishment or of the donor class.
Okay, guys, yes. Let's look at this really quickly. Okay, this is it's a Newsweek article, but whatever. It makes my point in a way that it's like, okay, at least you guys can see these names. Let's not forget Sheldon Adelson, who was a huge billionaire backer for Donald Trump last time around. Donald Trump actually is, yes, it's true that he's good at raising money from his supporters, but he absolutely raised a fuck ton of money from regular GOP donors, like a literal fortune. You know how there's all the reporting that we're going to get to about how Ron DeSantis, his campaign is falling apart? That's because Donald Trump is getting all of the GOP funding. To act as if somehow Wall Street and the Koch brothers and the who all else I'm trying to think of, like down here you have top key donors leaving DeSantis, the major backers. Here we go. Obviously, Vince McMahon is actually a huge backer. You can laugh that off, but Vince, whatever, that's fine. Contributed $4.5 million. Blackstone Group CEO Steven Schwartzman. See, Jimmy would be fear mongering to fuck if he saw Blackstone, which I'm sure it does appear on Joe Biden's list of donations. He'd be like, see, these are the people that are kicking you out of your homes. But when it comes to Donald Trump, he just pretends that they don't exist. ABC Supply co-founder Diana Hendricks gave him whatever. And actually, I think these are people that are also like potentially giving money to Ron DeSantis down here, which is, as you could see, hedge fund manager Ken Griffin, who gave $1 million to the pro-Trump PAC. So back in 2018, again, $1 million from a hedge fund manager went to Donald Trump, and there's now billionaire conservative Charles Koch network of donors, Americans for Prosperity, and the influential Club Growth have announced they won't back Trump in 2024, which means they did back him last time, which means he was not too unfriendly for him while he was president. Okay. Do you see what I mean? Even when they are flip-flopping to Ron DeSantis, they already all supported him last time around, and they already will once it becomes absolutely abundantly clear that the only other alternative is Joe Biden. Okay. That's why it's hysterical, and it's obviously bad faith, and it's because he knows where his audience is. And I can see the look of shame on Sabby's face when she's, going through with all of this, and she's like, okay, here it is. This is my transition into just being a right-wing enabler, because the look in her eyes is like she's a little sad with herself, and that's why I think she just has to force herself to laugh. But if you look at her face when Jimmy's talking, she's looking away, and I think she's starting to realize just how far away it's all gotten. You can just kind of see the look in her eyes. She looks like she's ashamed of herself, and I would be too if I was letting Jimmy Dore say this crazy shit on my show.
Yeah, it's been a very embarrassing trajectory for Sabrina. And yeah, I'm not sure if she's at all, fed up with the direction she's gone, or if she's happy where she's at. I would certainly be embarrassed to be making videos every day called Matt Taibbi speaks the truth. Jimmy Dore says, wake up. Like, this is the kind of content we're talking about. But yeah, it's just a ridiculous lie. I can't get over what an insane lie it is to say that Donald Trump is somehow an enemy of the donor class when over and over again he gave them all of the gifts he could have they could have possibly wanted. Have we forgotten about the fact that Trump signed an executive order basically immediately after becoming president, requiring agencies to slash 2 regulations for every new regulation put into place? I mean, this is one of the most pro-business, pro-donor class presidents we've ever fucking had. Have we forgotten about the fact that the Trump administration rolled back more than 100 environmental regulations? I mean, you can't get much more pro-big business, pro-donor class than Donald Trump. So again, it's just a fucking lie.
He made Scott Pruitt the head of the EPA, a man who was on record saying that he didn't believe in the Environmental Protection Agency.
Right. And then there's this lie about, oh, well, since he was an outsider, he came up from outside of the Republican Party structure. So he didn't surround himself with swamp monsters. He didn't surround himself with insiders. Of course not. Completely forgetting that he made Mike Pence his vice president, completely forgetting the fact that he hired John Bolton, Mike Pompeo. What the fuck are we talking about here? You're just lying now. You're literally just lying. And you're making up this imaginary version of Donald Trump that's somehow more anti-establishment than he ever actually was, and that somehow is feared by the donor class when the donor class absolutely wants this guy to be president.
Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Ed. I mean, the list goes on and on. That's Eric Prince's fucking sister. Okay, guys. Like, I mean, it doesn't get any more like transparent.
Anyway, we haven't even made it through the whole clip yet. So let's finish this up before we get into some of the responses, including from Mr. Sam Seder of the Majority Report.
Right, because what did we find out from Tucker Carlson? That one of the plans for Fox News was to support Ron DeSantis this time around and not to support Donald Trump, because the donors plan to back Ron DeSantis, and that's how it works.
Oh, I didn't know that Tucker revealed that. That's interesting. Of course, that's the truth.
Yeah. They had already decided. Rupert Murdoch had already decided we're going with DeSantis this time around, not Donald Trump, because that's who the donors are backing. So that's how it works.
I would also like to add that we're about to cover reporting that DeSantis is shedding his staff because he's not fundraising. Why? Because the donor class abandoned him. Why? They're literally manufacturing consent right now, Jimmy and Sabrina, to elect Donald Trump on the guise that he is the more outsider candidate when we know exactly how he will govern, and he governed poorly.
100%. Completely ridiculous and totally embarrassing. Again, if I had a guest on the Vanguard that was spewing that kind of bullshit, you better bet that there would have been some pushback. You fucking better believe it. Anyway, this got a lot of traction. Like I said, this clip kind of went viral. A lot of people dunking on Jimmy. One of those people was Mr. Sam Seder, like I mentioned. And if you guys recall in this clip, Jimmy Dore says, "I'll debate anyone on that," referring to his statement that, of course, obviously, Donald Trump is less of a fascist than Joe Biden. And I'll debate anyone on that, said Jimmy Dore. So Sam Seder says, hey, well, challenge accepted. Unless, of course, you are all hat and no cattle, Jimmy Dore, which is a funny expression, not one that I was particularly familiar with, but got to give it to Sam. I do enjoy that turn of phrase.
Especially because Jimmy wears that cringy ass fedora.
Yeah, that's a great point. All hat and no cattle. That's funny. Anyway, as you guys know, Sam Seder's been... Oh, wait, am I freezing up? Am I good? Okay, so yeah, as you guys know, Sam Seder has been trying to get Jimmy Dore to debate for a long time. At one point, he infamously called in, Jimmy did, to the Majority Report, and they got in like a 5-minute back and forth. That was the closest they've come to debating. And ever since then, Sam Seder has been trying to make it happen, trying to chase Jimmy down and force him to confront his disagreements, his criticisms, etc., etc. Jimmy has never allowed it to happen. He won't even really acknowledge Sam Seder's existence. I remember back in the day when we had Jimmy Dore on the Vanguard, I asked him, hey, will you ever debate Sam Seder? Jimmy Dore basically dodged the question, pretended to not even know who I was talking about. So that's kind of a, long running bit from Jimmy, not knowing who Sam Seder is, not acknowledging his existence. But here he is, quite frankly saying, I'll debate anyone on that. Anyone. And Sam Seder, of course, immediately rose to the challenge, rose to the occasion, rather. So what do you think, Zach? Do you think there's any chance that Jimmy Dore steps up to the plate and accepts Sam's request? Will we finally get to see Seder versus Dore come to fruition after all these years?
No, absolutely not. Jimmy is the biggest coward on the internet. He absolutely isn't confident in any of his ideas. He knows that his base is stupid as shit, and he's not actually willing to argue with anybody to defend these points. He needs to have yes men around him, and that's what he does. He just goes on interviews where it's the same schlock, no pushback, no, oh yeah, Jimmy, you said that's great. Oh, here's another great point from Tucker Carlson. Yeah. He left because they were going to get behind Ron DeSantis and not support the real chieftain of the people, the real populist, Donald J. Trump, lifelong billionaire real estate mogul. I mean, you can't make this shit up. He already governed like shit for 4 years. So yeah, no, of course Jimmy won't argue Sam Seder. He was humiliated in the 5-minute exchange over the phone, and that's why he started pretending he didn't know who Sam Seder was, because he never wanted to have to, be caught with his pants down like that again. Next time, that happened, as far as I'm documenting, when next time he went on a real debate with somebody was, when they tried to catch him on the Adam and Sid show, and he just ran away like a scared little, like a scared little, like a little bitch. That's what he does, because he's completely unconfident in his views. He's a shrimp. He doesn't have bravado. He can shout and scream and kick, but he can't defend his own ideas because he doesn't believe in anything. All he's out is to make a quick buck, and it's so transparent, dude. And it's so fucking easy to spot, and that's why he's had to go to the absolute lowest common denominator of an audience, okay? He is literally scraping the bottom of the barrel for the people who are like too online for Tucker Carlson and would rather split their time between fucking InfoWars and like listening to leftist shit on basically like talking head shit on leftists, and then be like, I'm a leftist, but I just hate everything the left stands for, and I only love what Tucker and Donald Trump are standing for, and if they've convinced me, then we've convinced everybody. Like that fucking jerk off game, the circle jerk. Ugh, it's maddening. But it's transparent. It's clear as day now, but absolutely not. Jimmy is afraid as fuck to argue anybody. He had Graham Hancock on, but that's only because he knew that his chat had already decided that he would win. All he would have to do is scream at Graham for 90 minutes, humiliate his old friend, because the chat was going to side with God tier Jimmy, the man who's never wrong. He literally created a cult following for himself. He's absolutely unserious. He's unwilling to engage in good faith at all. And we've been calling it out for a while over here at the Vanguard.